Thank you for the introduction. So, my name is Paola. I come from Mexico City. I'm the director of SOMBRA. We're a lighting design studio based in Mexico City. I hope you enjoy the presentation. I'm going to talk about blue. It has a very personal and emotional meaning for me. It's such a rare color and beautiful, yet it is everywhere we see. It is in our skies, in our ocean. It is a color of our planet. It is a color of some insects, of some plants. And I'm going to tell you about the history of blue and how did it appear in our language and in history. So, William Gladstone was this British politician. I think many of you guys know who he was. He was also a scholar, and he was a fanatic of Homer. He was obsessed with the Iliad and the Odyssey, and he found something really interesting. He found out that Homer never mentions the color blue in his books. So he was very surprised about this, and also Homer mentioned the colors in a very strange way. Homer descriptions of colors were the sheep are violet, honey is green, and oxen are black, the wine dark sea. So Gladstone started to read all of Homer's books, and he found out that there's no blue. Also, he studied a lot of Greek literature, ancient Greek literature, and he found out that there's no blue in any of the Greek literature. So Gladstone concluded that all of the ancient Greeks were colorblind, which is it doesn't make sense, but for him it did. And of course, no one took him seriously. So Gladstone died, and then his research went to the archive, and nobody cared. After 10 years, this guy called Lazarus Geiger, he's a German philologist. Philologists, they study ancient texts. So Geiger studied ancient texts from all over the world, like the Icelandic sagas, ancient Chinese, the Bible, the Quran, the Vedic hymns, and he found out the same pattern as Gladstone, that there's no blue in any of these ancient texts. So this was really a surprise for Geiger. So when did blue appear in our language? And Geiger continued his research. He made a very deep research with all of this bunch of ancient texts. And he found out that there's a specific order in language and color. And I'm going to explain to you the order of colors that appeared in our language. So the first colors that appeared in our language were black and white. This was to recognize, day and night, darkness and light. This was also for orientation, for time. So these first two colors appeared. Also, they're the two colors that have the most contrast between each other. The second color that appeared in our language was red. This meant danger, this meant blood, this meant death, birth, war, hunting. So this was also a very important color for humanity. The third color that appeared in our language was yellow. This was in order to recognize fruits, if they were ripe, if we could eat them. Also to recognize plants and agriculture, if they were dry or unhealthy. The fourth color was green, and it's very related with yellow. This was also to recognize fruits, if they were unripe, if you could eat them or not. Also for grains, for agriculture, for plants, if they were healthy, if they were not healthy. And the last color to appear in our language was blue. And why blue is always last? And if you can notice, all the colors that I just explained, they come from a need of survival, you know, like hunting or war or food or, you know, darkness, a day. But why do we have to mention the color blue? Like, was there a need to mention this color? You may be thinking, yeah, okay, blue is a very normal color, it is everywhere, but actually it is very strange, it is very rare. It is very rare to find in nature. You must be thinking, okay, well, yeah, the sky is blue, or the ocean is blue. But no, the sky is not a pigment, it is a reflection. The sky is not always blue. Sometimes it is orange, sometimes it is gray, sometimes it's black. The ocean is also a reflection, it is not a pigment. And you see this butterfly here? This butterfly is only blue when the sun hits its wings. If you put that butterfly in the shade, it is completely gray. Also blue eyes, they're a reflection, they're not a pigment. So there's more research about blue. It is very interesting. So I've been talking to Professor Jules Davidoff. He helped me a lot to explain his research. He was interested in this tribe called the Himba. They're from Namibia, and they used to have a GRU term. So a GRU term, it means that they had the one word for what we call green and blue. So as you can see in this chart, they called Buru for blue and green, and Dambu and Zuzu for those two types of green that, of course, we don't have those words. So he performed in 2004 these experiments. He showed this chart to the Himba. So there's 11 squares, and one of them is different. You can see the difference clearly, but the Himba couldn't see the difference. The Himba had a hard time to recognize the blue square because they don't have a word for blue. So they couldn't recognize a different square. The second experiment was performed to Westerners. So I don't know if you can see the difference in the square here, but there's one square that is different. The Himba could see the square very quickly, and the Westerners had a hard time to recognize the square. Maybe you can't recognize it. It's going to take a while. But it's because we don't have the words that the Himba have. But things have changed. This research was performed in 2004, and now the Himba have new words for blue and green. This is because of tourism and trading with a tribe called the Herero. And perhaps the Himba, now that they do have a word for blue, they see the world different. I mean, perhaps, I don't know, perception is very personal, but I'm sure they see the world different because they used to call the sky white, and now that they have a word for blue, maybe they see things differently. Okay, so what I'm trying to conclude with all of this crazy information is that language dictates the way we see the world, and I think that language limits the way we see the world. Just as Hammer did not see the blueness of the agency, just as the Himba couldn't recognize a blue square, when there is an object that we don't have a name for that object, we see it, but we don't notice it. So basically, our mind doesn't process it. So it doesn't exist. Like, Homer never saw a blue object. Homer never saw a blue sky. And I would like to conclude with a very beautiful quote from James Turrell. And it says, "We think we receive everything, that everything comes to us. But in fact, we're part of the perception that we create." Thank you so much, and I leave the question open for you guys about perception and the visual world and how we see things, and it's very personal, and yeah, thank you.